I am back with Patrick Lyden for a bit of an update following a congressional hearing on some of the bills that we discussed in our previous conversation. So let's jump into, Patrick, what happened yesterday, which would be April 17th.
Yes, very exciting. Energy and Commerce Committee, which has the jurisdiction over telecommunications and tech companies and online safety and privacy, held a hearing on a bunch of bills related to a larger privacy bill that they've just introduced, and then several online safety bills that were aimed at protecting children while they're engaged with social media and online.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of expected when going into it, because I haven't viewed a lot of these, I know there was 9 bills that they were discussing. I only heard them say out loud maybe 4. Maybe they mentioned a couple others one time, but I thought it would be like, this is this bill, let's discuss it. This is this bill. So how do they structure those conversations? How do they decide what they're going to focus on?
The person that runs the committee, the chair of the committee, sets the
Mm-hmm.
agenda. So she and her staff sat down, and usually with consultation with the minority, which is in this case the Democrat Party, put together those bills. So they decide largely what bills they'll discuss and in what order and what prevalence. And as you saw, the Congresswoman, the chair's American Privacy Rights Act, APRA,
Mm-hmm.
was the bill that was most discussed. And mainly because that's the chairperson's priority and because it's such a large, wide spanning bill that
Mm-hmm.
covers all people that are online in terms of protecting their privacy and how online companies can use and collect and store information. So
Okay.
this is a long time coming. It's something that Congress is very interested in, but it's
Mm-hmm.
taken them a while to get to this point. So I think there are a lot of people that had pent up issues and things that they wanted to discuss. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the chairwoman gets her priorities discussed more than anything else.
Right. Okay. So what we heard a lot about was the American Privacy Rights Act, APRA. We heard a lot about COSA, the Kids Online Safety Act. Sammy's Law was mentioned. COPPA 2.0 was mentioned quite a bit. And I can include a full list of the bills that are being
Yes.
discussed. Are these now going to move forward individually? Will some kind of come together as a group? Like what does sort of the next steps look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're very happy because things are moving very quickly now after a
Mm-hmm.
long period of talking about it, but
Yeah.
no action. So this hearing was a first step. And usually what they like to do is have a public hearing,
Mm-hmm.
air out a lot of the issues, let their members discuss it. They had hearing witnesses that did a good job
Mm-hmm.
explaining why there's a need for a lot of these bills
Mm-hmm.
and why, members of Congress should care and support. So that was yesterday. What we think is going to happen is there's a process where members of Congress of the committee
Mm-hmm.
get to actually consider each piece of legislation and amend, make changes, maybe update bills and try to change them in a way that they think is best. So
Mm-hmm.
that process is called a markup process, and we anticipate that'll happen in Energy and Commerce within the next few weeks.
Okay. So that was some of the questioning where a congressperson would be like, what's the most important part of this bill for you? And they would kind of build that out a little bit further or focus on
That's right.
that. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
And each member of Congress represents a different type of constituency. Obviously, someone that
Mm-hmm.
represents the middle of Ohio may have different opinions than someone
Mm-hmm.
that's representing Boston
Mm-hmm.
or my hometown of York, Pennsylvania. So
Mm-hmm.
they all come together and they try to make the best legislation possible. They pass it through committee,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes to the House floor where there's another amendment process, and the full House gets to offer amendments and try to change the bill in a way that they think is best, and then it gets voted on, and either it's supported by the House
Mm-hmm.
or it's opposed by the House, and then it would move on to the
Okay.
Senate.
Okay. And so from afar, watching virtually, it felt like sort of just a love fest for the bills. Like everyone's a big fan of everything. Everyone's like, let's move this forward. The witnesses did do a great job of bringing different perspectives on how this would help privacy and rights, and especially children's online safety. Is that what the vibe was like there in person?
Yes, I was in the room and happy to be accompanied by a few parent advocates that came to
Mm-hmm.
Washington for this specific purpose to hear what the members of Energy and Commerce had to say and to show support for bills like COSA and COPPA, but then also Sammy's Law. So
Mhm.
the mood in the room was very positive. It was a long hearing.
Yeah.
Everyone gets 5 minutes to talk and ask questions.
Mhm.
So it was a well attended hearing. So it was several hours long. I think everyone is excited about the opportunity to talk about these issues that
Mhm.
they've been hearing from their constituents about, but then also excited about the next steps of getting to dive into the legislation itself, maybe offer some changes and recommendations, and then vote on it in the future. I think
Mhm.
members of Congress in both the House and the Senate are eager to show their constituents that, hey, we hear you that you are asking for more protections, more privacy, some controls and tools that
Mhm.
you can use to protect your children.
Mhm.
And they want to come back to their constituents that there'll be a vote on them as public officials in November. They want to show that, hey, we care about you and we're listening to you. So they'll take that home and campaign on those issues this
Okay.
summer.
So this is a good time for this all to be happening.
This is perfect.
Okay. But these bills aren't a shoe-in, right? So we still need parents to speak up in support of online safety or specific bills. So how can parents best speak up for what's important to us, and where should we focus our energy? Should we be focusing on a specific bill that we feel like has got a good shot, or should we be sharing more general thoughts?
I think general thoughts are fine. And
Hmm.
the members of Congress don't expect or even want you to be, as a citizen, an expert on any policy issues. So
Hmm.
just reaching out to your member of Congress, calling them, you can call
Hmm.
their office. They have phone numbers that are publicly available on their websites. You can go to house.gov
Hmm.
and put in your zip code and find out who represents you if you don't know. And
Hmm.
then that usually links you to a page where it'll show you the different numbers that you can call either in the district, so closer to your house, or you can call Washington, D.C. directly. And all of
Hmm.
that is publicly available, which is great. And it's your right as a citizen to call in and discuss it. So I say more general. Do you care about online privacy? Yes, just tell them you care about online privacy. Do you
Hmm.
want more tools available so that you can have greater control over how your children use the internet and how much information you get about
Hmm.
their usage? And so you don't have to say, hey, I really care about Sammy's Law. You can say, I want the tools. Give me the tools
Hmm.
to protect my children online. And they'll usually know where you're, kind of what you're referring to and what you're talking about. So being a generalist is fine in this instance, and just saying, we want more protections.
Hmm.
We want the platforms to have a greater, reins on them when it comes to how our data is used and why it's used and where it's stored. I think that's fine to just talk about it generally.
Okay. Tell me the process again. So, when potentially would there be a vote? And then, how long is it until these bills would be put into actual law?
Yeah, that's a good question. Congress always moves a lot slower than anyone, including members of Congress, would like.
Yeah.
So this is not going to be a very fast process. We think that the House has moved faster than we've seen in a long time, where they released a discussion draft on the privacy bill.
Hmm.
And then they went to this hearing very quickly. It caught
Yeah.
people off guard, particularly their counterparts in the Senate who haven't been moving
Hmm.
as fast, but are engaging in a similar process. So they're moving fast for the House, but that's for the House. But for the public, they're probably moving pretty slow. So I
Hmm.
think we'll see a markup in the House
Hmm.
in the next month.
Okay.
I don't want to pin myself on
That's
any
okay. No,
prediction,
this is all
but I think
theoretical.
we could see it as early as there's a district work period next week. So that means
Okay.
the members of Congress are at home in their district. So perfect time to be interacting with
Hmm.
offices next week
Hmm.
as they are home and talking to constituents. So they have built-in time periods that they are not in Washington so
Hmm.
that they can interact with their constituents. And you'll see
Okay.
a lot of meetings and calls and teletown halls and things of that nature. So there
Okay.
might be opportunities, if you're aware and watching what your member of Congress is doing, to interact specifically. If they don't have that, then you can call up the office, or you can send in an online form, or
Hmm.
usually on their website, or send an email saying, hey, I care about these issues.
Hmm.
We could see a markup in energy and commerce as early as 2 weeks from now. So
Okay.
things could move pretty quick. Senate is
Okay.
a little unclear.
Okay.
They also have the same privacy bill has
Mhm.
been discussed at the Senate level,
Mhm.
and we're waiting for them to tell us if they're going to hold hearings or if they're going to engage in a type of process so that the senators can consider the privacy bill, COSA, and other bills that are
Okay.
moving along with it. COSA has been so far the lead in the Senate, and
Yeah.
there's a big push to get COSA done.
Okay.
Senator Blumenthal and Senator Blackburn have worked alongside bipartisan
Mhm.
Democrat and Republican for
Mhm.
a very long time to protect children. And this has been their labor of love. They really want to get this across
Okay.
the aisle to get it across the line and finished. And then a new wrinkle with the American Privacy Rights Act, this new privacy bill, we'll have
Mhm.
to see how that works with COSA. But a lot of us who are lobbyists and advocates in Washington, D.C., have been
Mhm.
working in the Senate to get COSA pushed over the line and considered on the Senate floor and then passed. And then we're also working in the same effort in the House.
Doesn't it need to go? So does the same bill not go through the House and then the Senate? Yes.
Yeah, it can go, they can do their own processes.
Okay.
And then what happens is once it's passed in each chamber, so the
Mm.
House would pass it, the Senate would pass it, then
Mhm.
they come together in a what's called a conference committee, and
Okay.
they hash out the differences between each bill because the Senate and the House
Ah.
rarely do anything the same. They're kind of like big brother, little sister. They are always fighting back and forth about what the best way to do something is.
Okay. Yep.
Very near and dear to my heart with two girls at home. They're always fighting and never share the same opinion about how we should be doing something. So
Yeah.
it's very similar in the House and the Senate.
Okay.
And so they, if we can get them both passed in each chamber,
Mhm.
then they'll come together and work out the differences. Once they come, they'll come back and vote again in both the House and the Senate. Then it gets joined together and sent to the president. So
Okay.
there's a lot of process that is left and
Okay.
a lot of effort, a lot of time that parents and advocates have left to interact and make sure
Mhm.
that your voice is heard.
Okay. Has President Biden made any comment on whether or not he would support these bills?
Yes, I think he's generally supportive. I don't know that he's looked at each specific bill that's being considered,
Okay.
but we know that he is supportive in talking to the administration. They know that people are asking for greater privacy rights.
Okay.
They're asking for more protections of children. So I
Mhm.
think if something is passed and sent to him, I'm
Mhm.
confident that the president will support that and sign it into law. At
Okay.
least that's the hope.
Could it get to him before the election?
Yes.
Okay.
Will it?
Um,
I don't know.
I know. Okay. And then once something is signed into law by the president, I feel like there's a long period before it goes into effect. So is
Yes,
that what?
well, there will be mandates on the platform companies to
Yeah.
change their systems when it relates
Big
to
time.
COSA in particular,
Mhm.
design changes,
Mhm.
mandates on how and where and when your information is collected. So
Mhm.
there's always an enactment period, and I'm not
Mhm.
quite sure exactly what the enactment period is for the Privacy Rights Act.
Okay.
What you'll see is the platform companies will understand if things are really momentum is building and things are moving, they'll start implementing some things willingly to
Okay.
say that, hey, out of the goodness of our hearts, we are making these changes. We hear
Mhm.
parents asking for greater protections.
Mhm.
So a lot of times companies try to get ahead of, these things and start
Mhm.
implementing changes. But there'll be an enactment period between, 3 months to 6 months to a year to
Okay.
allow the companies to conform because there will be changes that they will big changes in particular
Yeah.
with these bills,
Right.
and how they interact and how they collect and where they store information, how
Mhm.
they allow children to interact with others online and
Mhm.
the types of information that's shared. So
Yeah.
it will be a lot of work for the platform companies to conform to the
Yeah.
law. You'll see them start rolling things out to try to gain some good press and
Mhm.
goodwill. Like,
Mhm.
hey, we're doing this for you guys.
Yeah. Well, they're press machines. They love good press.
Yes.
What opportunities do the tech companies have to fight this, and at what point? Because I know with the Florida social media ban for kids under 14, and it goes into effect in January, but I've heard that they're going to sue and try to stop this law from happening. So is that the same process that the tech
Yes.
companies can take? They could sue the government for infringing on their rights or something.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. Number one, these bills are just in what you would consider a draft form at
Okay.
this point.
Mm-hmm.
So they are, I know that they are lobbying and talking to
Mm-hmm.
Energy and Commerce Committee members and the staff and saying, hey, if you do this, you're going to have unintended consequences. If you do that, we won't be able to provide these services. If so,
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to educate, which is their
And
right, and
they're
they're
trying
trying
to
to educate
influence the
staff.
markups at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So they will be lobbying both the committee staff and members of Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And they're smart people and they're well equipped and they're
Mm-hmm.
very well funded. So
I was going to say
there
well
will be a
paid.
lot of yeah, there will be a lot of interaction on these bills.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there already has been behind the scenes, but between now and when the bill is marked up, there'll be a large lobbying effort.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be a public relations campaign. You'll
Mm-hmm.
see advertisements. You'll see, just like with the TikTok bill, TikTok really ramped up its public relations. Like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
Congress, these old people are trying to take away the app that you use
Right.
every
Right.
day.
Right.
And they've grouped small business people together to say, hey, you're taking away my livelihood. So
Mm-hmm.
there will be a large public relations campaign. I think it's fair for the tech companies to say, hey, this is how you will have an impact. And if
Mm-hmm.
we read the bill language, this will be the way that it will be impacted.
Mm-hmm.
This is the unintended consequences, which we want to avoid. I think you never get policy 100% right, but you do
Mm-hmm.
want to get the policy as close to good as possible
Yeah.
so that there isn't an unintended consequences where, oh, we just
Mm-hmm.
shut down the internet. You don't want that. we
Right.
we want some people, I should say, don't
Mm-hmm.
want that. But
Yeah.
um, we want to make sure that if people are wanting to engage online, they can in a
Mm-hmm.
productive, safe, and legal way.
Yeah.
And so there are some technical things that the companies do have to discuss. They
Mm-hmm.
also will try to protect their business models, which a lot of tech companies are built off the advertising model. These
Right.
bills that were considered at Energy and Commerce will have a large impact on that advertising model,
Yep.
particularly as it relates to children.
Yep.
And you probably saw this in the hearing,
Mm-hmm.
which kudos to you for surviving an entire hearing.
Mm-hmm.
It could be long and
Yeah.
dry.
Yeah.
You saw a lot of talk about advertising to children, and there was a compelling younger
Mm-hmm.
member of the panel, the witness
Mm-hmm.
panel, that discussed,
Mm-hmm.
hey, children can't tell the difference between advertising and content.
Yeah.
And so sometimes advertising has a heavier weight on
That
children
was
because they can't tell the difference.
Yeah, that was Ava Smithing. I think that her story was so sad and horrible, and like she's the person that we need to be hearing from
And
that got
what a forceful
represented.
advocate
Yeah,
for her position.
so well
And
spoken, handled those
yes,
questions like
I
just as
she
well
handled
as
the
those.
questions like she
Yeah.
was a pro. She was really impressive and a great witness, because that's the type of witness that
Mhm.
you can't have everyone in the United States talk to Congress
Mhm.
all the time.
Right.
So having a witness like that is very impactful and
Yeah.
provides a great viewpoint and a voice for those that may not be heard.
And I want to note before we start to close out that you'll see some of those PR campaigns already with these social media companies. So Snapchat released their less social media, more Snapchat. We are not social media campaign. Really, I think trying to maybe legally remove themselves from having to even follow these new policies that are going to be put into place by saying we're a camera company. We open to a camera. We're not social media. Therefore, we don't have to oblige, COSA's policies or whatever gets passed. It's always like an underlying, you can look at these PR campaigns and sort of read between the lines, like, why are they doing this? And that's something I try to expose on this podcast
Yeah,
is like,
that's a really shrewd and well-made point, because that's exactly what's happening. The public policy and the
mm-hmm,
legal teams are combing through each
mm-hmm,
word
yeah,
in the bill, trying
yeah,
to figure out how would this apply, how
yep,
would it implicate our company, and could
mm-hmm,
we somehow, is there a loophole, or is
yep,
there some way that we can argue that we are not social media or we are not. They'll make the argument. I think
Mhm.
so. To get back to your original question, yes, there will be a lobbying effort. There'll be a
Mhm.
PR campaign.
Mhm.
Once these bills are passed and signed into law, there will be legal challenges because
Mhm.
there will be legal challenges on First Amendment rights and free speech. And
Mhm.
TikTok is you could use TikTok as a model for that.
Mhm.
They've made those arguments, and they will be fully fighting this out in the courts if a TikTok bill is
Mhm.
passed in
Mhm.
both the House and Senate.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the update for today, right? On what happened yesterday at the hearing and these privacy bills and online safety bills for children that are outstanding. So thank you, Patrick, for that update. And I will tap you to keep people updated on what's going on with these bills. So I encourage parents to go on house.gov. On the top right, you put your zip code in and you'll get to contact through phone or email your representative and just share with them what's important to you. So thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all your work in this space.